Sangye Churdan Soki Chognam La Jangcho Bardu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chenyingi Pesichi Rola Penche Sangye Drumpar Shug Sangye Churdang Soki Chognam La Jangcho Bardu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chenyengi Pesonam Ki Rola Penche Sangye Drupar Shug Sangye Churdang Soki Chognam La Jangcho Bardu Dagni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chenyengi Pesonam Ki Rola Penche Sangye Drupar Sho.
Okay, so thanks, Bob. Let's just do a couple of minutes meditation on the breath. Just focus without distraction on the breath going out and coming in through your nostrils. So now think, the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, first I have to reach enlightenment myself, which I can do by completing the graduated path to enlightenment. So completing that path depends on knowing what it is, studying the teachings on it, thinking about it, meditating on it, and attaining realizations of all the hundreds and thousands of steps along the path to enlightenment. So in order to do that, in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, I'm going to study Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment, the first lamrim, or stages of the path text, and looking at the commentaries by Khunu Lama Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Geshe Sonam Rinchen. So that's our motivation for studying these teachings. Okay, so last class was a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about the English, the monk, the late English Lawrence Mills, who had been the monk Kantipalo. How can I do this? Can I share my screen? Is my screen sharing?
I don't see it, but you should be able to share it.
Share screen, share.
I see it now.
You see that?
We see the
see that photo?
Zoom. No, we see the Zoom screen.
Oh.
The browser screen that we're joining Zoom.
You can't see that photo?
Don't see a photo.
No, never mind. Okay, I'll put it in the chat. Anyway, it was a photo of me and Kantipalo. Now I'm going to stop screen sharing. Okay, there we are. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm apparently relatively technologically inept. So how do I put, okay, never mind. It's not important. Okay, so we got last time, a couple of weeks ago, we got up to verse 7. So Geshe Sonam Rinchen's lead up to that, in his lead up, he says, the perfect methods to attain enlightenment consist of the excellent attitude and excellent application. The excellent attitude comprises the special Mahayana way of taking refuge and developing the altruistic intention, bodhicitta, which is like a king whom we wish to invite into our being. So, if we're inviting this important person into our home, that's one thing. So he's likening developing bodhicitta as inviting, extremely important mind into our being. When making ready to receive such an honored guest, we must prepare by cleansing ourselves of all wrongdoing and obstructions, and by creating a conducive inner environment. This is done through accumulating a great store of positive energy, merit, without which the altruistic intention cannot be developed. The development of the aspiring and engaged form of the altruistic intention. So we talked before about, aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. One where we wish, we see our bodhicitta would be great. It'd be nice if I had that, and then to actually go about developing it. The development of the aspiring, engaged forms of the altruistic intention and the trainings associated with them are Atisha's main concern here. The accumulation of merit, taking refuge and training in the three essential attitudes act as preparations for the promise to hold the aspiring altruistic intention. So then Geshe-la goes through. So when we looked at Khunu Lama Rinpoche's commentary on this, he dealt with verses 6 to 11 very briefly, just saying there are 6 preparatory practices. First, visualize the merit field, make offerings, then kneel down with your hands in prostration and take refuge in the triple gem. After that, generate love for other sentient beings by thinking of the sufferings of death, old age, sickness, and rebirth, as well as the 3 sufferings and the general sufferings of samsara. In that way, generate bodhicitta. So that was extremely brief, dealing with those 6 verses. So Geshe Sonam Rinchen deals with 7, 8, and 9 together. So 7 reads, so this is from Lamp of the Path, Atisha's Lamp of the Path. Face paintings, statues, and so forth of the completely enlightened one, reliquaries, and the excellent teaching. Offer flowers, incense, whatever you have. Did I say face paintings? Facing paintings. You don't have to paint your face. Facing paintings, statues, and so forth of enlightened ones, reliquaries, stupas, and the excellent teaching, texts. Offer flowers, incense, whatever you have to those holy objects. So, we can do that every day. That's why we have an altar with all those different holy objects on it. So then we can make offerings, create merit. We can prostrate and make offerings and so forth every day. With the 7-part offering from the prayer of noble conduct, that's Samantabhadra's prayer, we call that the King of Prayers. From the 7-part offering, from the prayer of noble conduct, with the thought never to turn back till you gain ultimate enlightenment, and with strong faith in the three jewels, in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, kneeling with one knee on the ground and your hands pressed together. So, usually like that. Hands pressed together. First of all, take refuge 3 times. So the King of Prayers is where the 7-limb practice comes from. We just did it we just recited the 7 limbs in the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. The normal order is prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting, beseeching, and dedicating. In the Lama Tsongkhapa one, because it's a Guru Yoga practice, first verse is the request to teach. So we invoke him from Tushita, and then we do the prostration. So this comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the Flower Adornment Scripture. This is translated from the Chinese by Thomas Cleary. He's an amazing translator. He did some incredible work. It's kind of a biggish book. So there's a chapter towards the end where from where this Samantha Bhadra, King of Prayers, comes from, and within that there's the 7 limb offering. So Geshe-la says, in a clean and attractive place, set up an image of the Buddha Shakyamuni. This may be a painting or statue. It represents the enlightened body. For Buddhists, such an image is indispensable. A reliquary stupa is placed to the left of the image. The different parts of the stupa represent aspects of the enlightened mind. Atisha's own commentary on the lamp mentions that it should contain relics. So, when we built the stupa at Kurukulla, the Kalachakra stupa, there are many relics that Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave us, some relics, some of which I think were on the actual relics tour. And Geshe-la had some other relics. There's a list of all the things that were put into the stupa in Tibetan. I asked Damcho to translate it about maybe 10 years ago. I don't think he's done it yet. I'll try and remind him. So Atisha's commentary on his own commentary on the lamp, I should have looked that up. I'm not sure if it's been translated into English. It says here in the footnotes that it's said to include later additions and interpolations, some of which are helpful while others are misleading. These were probably made by Atisha's disciples. So, you can always blame the disciples. So he says that the stupa should contain relics. We made a bunch, a few years ago, we made 150, I think, stupas, kadam stupas at Nalanda Monastery. And inside those, we put some of the relics from Lama Yeshe's cremation. It contains some of Lama's ashes. I still have some of Lama Yeshe's ashes, so maybe it would be good to make some more stupas at some point. It's customary to fill the hollow interior of a stupa or statue with relics and mantras written on strips of paper, which are rolled into small cylindrical packages. I'm sure most of you are familiar with those. We used to have quite a few mantra rolling sessions at the center. I think we've had one for a while. Well, we haven't had anything at the center for a while. But even before that, a volume of scriptures. So there's a statue of the Buddha, and then a stupa, and then to the right, a volume of scriptures representing enlightened speech, particularly teachings of the great vehicle, Mahayana teaching. Could be the Heart Sutra, for example, or anyway, any Mahayana Sutra, is placed to the right of the image. These objects should actually be present in the room where we intend to practice. So before them, we arrange offerings of flowers, incense, light, perfume, food, musical instruments, whatever other good things we have. These should be acquired without dishonesty or deceit and offered without the pollution of negative thoughts or intentions. So a lot of this is explained in much more detail in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, where, Pabonka Rinpoche spends a good part of that text in explaining the preliminary practices. So the lamrim, so it's essentially Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, sort of a commentary on Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, the great Lamrim. But Lamrim Chemo is sort of heavy at the end. There's the last third or so is the teachings on insight and wisdom, to developing concentration and realizing emptiness. So Dipamkara Rinpoche's text is a bit lighter at the end, but it's sort of loaded at the front with a lot of explanations of the preliminary practices, which is probably more what we need in a way. So these should be acquired without dishonesty or deceit, and offered without the pollution of negative thoughts or intentions. So he explains the 5 wrong livelihoods, like bribery and flattery and coercion, obtaining things, hinting, things like that. So we may also offer wonderful things of this world that we don't own, but we've seen, as well as those we imagine. So, in the 7 limb prayers, it says the offerings, those, the offerings that we, the actual offerings, the physical offerings that we make, the water, incense, fruit, light, and so forth, and those mentally transformed, or those we visualize. So there's no limit to what we can visualize as offerings, and it's very powerful. And then when we do longer practices, we do the offering mantra and the prayer of the words of truth to make those visualized offerings a reality for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to whom we're offering them. As those we imagine, lakes and pools, trees heavy with fruit, rich harvests, fragrant flowers. So, as I've said before, that if you can practice visualizing a pure land, and a pure land can be as beautiful and as amazing as you want it to be, and if you practice visualizing pure land with all these incredible, offerings within it, food and perfume and incense and light and just all the amazing, beautiful things that you can imagine, then, if you're familiar with that visualization, then when you, even if you're doing, just running through like a mandala offering fairly quickly, like when we say, may all sentient beings enjoy this pure land, you can immediately visualize what that pure land is. And you can visualize all sentient beings in it. When we give gifts, the intention is to please the recipient, which creates much positive energy. So that's the meaning of puja, offering something that pleases. We try to offer the best we have. For instance, if we have real flowers, we offer them. But if we don't, we may also offer paper or cloth flowers. When I was a boy, when I was a boy, I used to take the cattle up the mountain near my home in eastern Tibet. A flower with yellow bells grew on those high pastures. My parents were always very pleased when I brought some of these home because they were so fragrant. I was quite young at the time, and when they sent me into the shrine room to offer the flowers, I felt frightened because it was lit only by a single butter lamp and was rather dark. If you've been into a Sherpa or a Tibetan home, especially out in the countryside, that'll be familiar. After our real and imagined material offerings, we make an offering of practice or a mental offering by performing the 7-part worship from the King of Prayers, also known as the Prayer of Noble Conduct. So the footnote here says the King of Prayers, also known as the Prayer of Noble Conduct, Samanta Bhadra, It's found in the Tantra section of the Kangyur and as part of the Avatamsaka Sutra. So that's this one, Flower Adornment Sutra. This long sutra describes the deeds of bodhisattvas, which the King of Prayers summarizes. For the verses of the 7-part practice from the King of Prayers, see the appendix. Well, I looked in the appendix here, and I looked in the appendix of this book, and I can't find it. So I don't know quite what appendix they're talking about, actually. Just have another look. Oh, actually, it is in the back of this book called 7-Part Practice, page. It's not called an appendix. It's not called an appendix, but it is an appendix. Page 149. So this from the King of Prayers, the prayer of conduct, the 7-part offering. It goes, I pay homage to the youthful noble Manjushri. I pay homage with body, speech, and mind to all Buddhas, past, present, and future, to all those lions among humans, as many as there are in the worlds of the 10 directions. Through the power of this prayer of noble conduct, in my mind's eye, I see all those victorious ones, with as many bodies as there are atoms in the worlds. I bow to them all, the victorious ones. On every atom, amidst bodhisattvas, are as many Buddhas as there are atoms, and I similarly imagine the whole sphere of phenomena filled with Buddhas. So, if we try to imagine every atom is filled with Buddhas and bodhisattvas, it's kind of a mind-blowing visualization. With an inexhaustible ocean of praise through oceans of sound made with the organs of speech, I speak of the qualities of the victorious and praise all those who have gone to bliss. So that's kind of the prostration part. With the finest flowers and finest garlands, with the sweetest music, best unguents and best parasols, with the best butter lamps and the finest incense, I make offerings to all those victorious ones. With fine clothes and best fragrances, aromatic powders, heaped as high as the King of Mountains, all arranged in the most excellent fashion, I make offering to those victorious ones. So if you're trying to create your own visualization of the Pure Land, this gives us some clues as to the kind of things we can visualize there. I imagine giving all the victorious ones the most extensive and unsurpassable offerings. Through the power of faith in noble conduct, I bow and make offerings to all the victorious ones. So there's the first 2 limbs, really, prostration and offering. Whatever wrong actions I've created with my body, my speech, and with my mind, driven by desire, anger, and confusion, each of these I openly acknowledge. So we do the confession. And we're sort of confessing as much to ourselves. We're being honest with ourselves, admitting to ourselves at least all the negative actions we've done. I rejoice, 4th one, I rejoice in the merit of the victorious ones and the bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, the solitary realizers, trainees, and the perfected, and in that of all living beings. I urge those protectors who have just gained Buddhahood, enlightenment without obstruction, who are lamps for the worlds in the 10 directions, to turn the unsurpassable wheel of the teachings. So rejoicing and then requesting the Buddhas to teach. With folded hands, I request those who wish to display the passing into parinirvana to remain for the benefit and joy of living beings for as many eons as the worlds have atoms. So that's kind of the beseeching our teachers to remain until the end of samsara. I dedicate the slight merit I've created through the reverence, offerings and confession, through rejoicing, exhorting and through requesting to the attainment of highest enlightenment. So that's the essence of the seven limb prayer from the King of Prayers. So if you recite the King of Prayers regularly, you'll recognize that. Slightly different translation from the one we usually do. Okay, so that's a reference to the seven limb offering from the King of Prayers. It's said to incorporate seven kinds. This is said to incorporate seven kinds of offering. Performance of this practice is called a mental offering because it's done through the power of thought. For example, at the beginning of the prayer, we pay homage with body, speech, and mind, not just to one Buddha in one world, but to all Buddhas, past, present, and future, in all world systems. We imagine countless replicas of our own body, making prostrations to them. So when we make prostrations, we should do them physically if we can. But while we're doing them, as Geshe says here, we can visualize that not only am I doing this prostration to these holy objects, but you can visualize countless, infinite replicas of our own body. Sometimes Lama Zopa Rinpoche says you can imagine all our past lives appearing in the form of our current body, and we're sort of leading all these, as far as we can visualize all these bodies of ourselves doing prostration, we're sort of leading them in the prostration. So normally when we prostrate, we recite the prayer and we do this visualization and we prostrate with our body. So that's prostrating with body, speech, and mind. And important, one of the important things to have in mind is faith in the objects to which we're prostrating. So another way Lama Zopa Rinpoche says we can prostrate is not to imagine that we're, we can imagine all our previous lives appearing in our current form and prostrating along, but as well as that, we can visualize all sentient beings from the six realms appearing in human form. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to visualize a snake prostrating. Appearing in human form, but thinking they're sentient beings coming from all the realms, the hell realms, hungry ghost, animal realms, human, sura realms. And we're leading them all in prostration. So not just visualizing all our previous lives, but visualizing all sentient beings. And then also Rinpoche said that when we visualize ourselves and these others prostrating, don't visualize them as, small, 5 foot something or 6 foot, but as huge, like a huge body, visualize. Because the more ground you cover when you prostrate, the more merit you create. So, Rinpoche always joked that he had a small, skinny body, so he had to do more prostrations than tall, fat people, because they covered more ground, Anyway, so there are different ways to visualize when we're doing prostration to sort of extract sort of more essence out of it. And there's a lot more to it than that as well. The 7 parts consist of homage or prostration, offering acknowledgement of wrongdoing, we call confession, rejoicing, requesting enlightened ones to teach, requesting them not to leave the world, and dedication. So as we do this, we can incorporate the 6 perfections and 6 excellent features. 6 excellent, I'm not sure what these 6, anyone know what they are? 6 excellent features? Okay, there's some research somebody can do for next week. 6 perfections and 6 excellent features. Oh, hang on. Maybe they're coming. Jetson Kappa describes how this is done in the great exposition of the stages of the path, lamrim chenmo. When explaining the 6 excellent features, he quotes from a Sangha's compendium of the great vehicle. So the footnote says, by presenting the reasoning that establishes the selfnesses of phenomena, the Sangha's compendium of the great vehicle, the Mahayana Sutra Samgraha, demonstrates the Chittamatrin view that all phenomena do not have a nature different from awareness. This compendium, Atisha's compendium, has been translated by Karl Brunholz in 3 volumes, published by Shambhala, I think. I don't have it. It doesn't explain what the 6 excellent features are, so maybe someone can find them in Lamrim Chenmo. Sorry.
Is this the 6 perfections?
No, he says the 6 excellent. He says the 6 perfections and the 6 excellent features.
Oh, okay.
But now he's going. Sorry, this is going on to explain it here. I didn't do my homework well enough. The first of these features is the excellent basis of maintaining the altruistic intention, the bodhicitta. The second is the excellent fact of performing each of the 7 parts in as complete a way as possible by, for instance, also incorporating all the perfections. So I think we know from the teachings on the 6 perfections that each perfection is practiced incorporating the other 5. So each practice of each perfection actually can involve all the others. The excellent objective, the 3rd feature, is the ultimate happiness of all living beings. The 4th, the excellent method employed, is the understanding that, for example, the person paying homage, the act of homage, and the object of homage are interdependent and lack inherent existence. So this is sometimes called the meditating on the emptiness of the circle of the 3, the actor, the action, and the object of the action. So when we dedicate merit, we should remember the circle of the 3, the merit that we're dedicating, the action of dedicating, and the enlightenment to which we're of all sentient beings to which we're dedicating it. So when we dedicate by remembering emptiness or the interdependence of the different aspects of dedicating, then merit is much more powerful. If we dedicate merit remembering emptiness or in emptiness, it creates the cause to realize emptiness and escape from cyclic existence. Whereas if we dedicate merit without that understanding, it just leads to, good results within cyclic existence. We're creating good karma, but it's not the ultimate good karma that can free us from cyclic existence. Of course, I never remember, but I'm trying to remember it at the end today. So the fourth is this. The fourth of these excellent features is this dedicating in emptiness. The 7-part practice is regarded as an excellent purification. The fifth feature, in that, so the fifth feature, or the fifth excellent feature, is the 7-part practice is regarded as an excellent purification, in that it counteracts the obstructions to liberation and to knowledge of all phenomena. So the obstruction to liberation are the gross delusions, the 3 poisons and so on that we always talk about: greed, ignorance, hatred. And the obstruction to knowledge of all phenomena are the imprints that the gross obscurations leave on our consciousness. So Nyendip are the gross ones in Tibetan, and Sheddip are the imprints that these delusions leave on our consciousness, that we still have to purify even after we've realized emptiness and escaped from and gained liberation, escaped from samsara. We still have a lot of purification of these imprints to do, these obscurations to knowledge. So the 7-part practice, the 7 limb, is regarded as an excellent purification, in that it counteracts both these levels of obscuration. And the 6th, the last, is an excellent dedication of the positive energy created to the happiness and unsurpassable enlightenment of all living beings. So even a single prostration done with these 6 excellent features is a powerful practice. In his explanation of how to incorporate the 6 perfections, Je Tsongkhapa follows a commentary by Hari Bhadra on the perfection of wisdom, Sutra in 8,000 verses. So Hari Bhadra's commentary has been translated by Gareth Sparham, who was one of the early Kopan monks, and then he went to the Dharamsala, to the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, and he studied there for maybe 20 years. And he's focused his study and translation on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras and Hari Bhadra's commentary, and related texts. So he's done some amazing work. Gareth Sparham. He's the one who also translated Khunu Lama's Lamp in Praise of Bodhicitta, the vast as the heavens and deep as the sea. And he also translated Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on the Bodhisattva vows. So those 2 books published by Wisdom, not on the Tantric vows, sorry. Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on the Tantric vows, called The Fulfillment of All Hopes. So, Gareth's done some great translation work. He's one of the people I met at my first course, at the 3rd course at Kopan in '72. I've got his translation over there on the shelf of Haribhadra. I haven't read it. So Lama Tsongkhapa is following Haribhadra's commentary. Generosity in this context consists of encouraging others to do the practice in which one is engaged. Ensuring what one does is free from negative thoughts or actions is ethical discipline. The Bodhisattva's ethical discipline specifically requires that the action should not be tainted by self-interest or, what we call self-cherishing. Willingness to bear disparagement and any hardships involved out of a strong conviction in the efficacy of the great vehicle is the practice of patience. So he's explaining how to practice generosity with the other perfections. So, generosity, encouraging others to do the practice in which one's engaged. So, there are three kinds of giving: material givings, saving sentient beings from fear, and giving of Dharma. So giving of Dharma is considered the highest of the three kinds of giving. So encouraging others to do the different practices that we're engaged in is the generosity or giving of Dharma. So then doing them with freedom from self-cherishing, that's the morality, Bodhisattva's morality or ethical discipline. Willingness to bear disparagement, people criticizing us or telling us we're wasting our time and so forth, any other hardships that we happily put up with because we're so dedicated to our Mahayana practice. So putting up with that is the practice of patience. So the third perfection. Remaining enthusiastic through understanding the value of one's actions is enthusiastic effort or enthusiastic perseverance. Avoiding distraction and maintaining the single-pointed intention to attain enlightenment is concentration. Understanding that the practitioner, the practice, and those in relation to whom it's performed are interdependent, and like a magical illusion is wisdom and prevents arrogance. So, if when you stop at a traffic light and some panhandler comes up asking for some money, if you can give a person like $1, we can practice all these 6 perfections in that one action by remembering all these different points. And that's, being focused on this tiny moment of giving, but we can practice all 6 perfections just by, if you're doing it out this side, if you're driving, just by giving $1 or a quarter or something so that person is very precious. So, we shouldn't just sort of toss it to the person, but we should actually give it with respect. This person could be a bodhisattva, it's manifesting in order to help us with our practice, to test us, to see how whether we've mastered the practice of giving or whether we still have work to do. Our negative actions and inner obstructions are an obstacle to happiness. These are counteracted by paying homage and acknowledging wrongdoing. We create the positive energy needed to overcome them by making offerings and rejoicing. That store of merit is increased by requesting the enlightened ones to teach and to remain in the world. This also counteracts the many things that we do that are contrary to the Buddha's teachings. And then dedicating our positive energy is an antidote to wrong views, such as disbelief in the connection between actions and their effects, thinking that there's no karma. By dedicating the virtue we create to act as a cause for our own and others' enlightenment, we affirm that connection. There's a lot in this teaching, you know, we just sort of brush across the surface reading it like this, but it's really something to study and think about and meditate on, and, you know, relate to our own experience, and to see how we can incorporate all these different points in our practice. Making offerings is followed by taking refuge. Practitioners of initial and intermediate capacity make a commitment to entrust themselves to the three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, during this life, whereas the special Mahayana way of taking refuge entails entrusting ourselves to Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha until we attain ultimate enlightenment. What does this mean? When bodhisattvas attain enlightenment, they do so in the place of ultimate enlightenment in the pure realm known as beneath none. So it's the highest. You know, there's no realms higher. It's beneath none. Ogmin, and the Kopan, the Tibetan name for Kopan monastery is Ogmin Changchub Churling. So Ogmin or Akanishta means so Ogmin means beneath none, Changchub enlightenment, Dharma place, Ogmin Changchub Churling. Beneath none, Ogmin meaning there is none higher, is the highest of the 17 abodes of the form realm. So we looked at those briefly when we looked at Thupten Gyatso, Adrian Feldman's book on the world and ourselves. These 17 abodes of the form realm. Lying just beyond this is the Pure Land called the richly adorned land beneath none, to which reference is made here. So we attain ultimate enlightenment. When bodhisattvas attain enlightenment, they do so in the place of ultimate enlightenment in the pure realm known as beneath none. In this world, they then display the deed of attaining enlightenment in Bodh Gaya. These two are called the place of ultimate enlightenment. When taking refuge in the Mahayana way, we promise with intense compassion for all living beings and with the confidence of the extraordinary qualities of the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, you know, three jewels is often the way, you know, commonly expressed for, you know, the triple gem or the three jewels of refuge and so forth. Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't like that translation, and it's not literal from the Tibetan. He calls it the three rare, precious sublimes, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's Konchok Sum. So the three rare sublime ones, he calls the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, the three rare sublime ones. So Kon means rare or precious. Konchok is sublime. Sum is three. Anyway, that's what the three jewels means. So when taking refuge in the Mahayana way, we promise intense compassion for all living beings and with confidence in the extraordinary qualities of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, never to turn away from them until we attain ultimate enlightenment, the wisdom truth body of the Buddha, Dharmakaya. In this context, the jewel of the teachings and the jewel of the spiritual community, Dharma and Sangha jewels, specifically refer to the teachings of the great vehicle, Mahayana, and to exalted bodhisattvas, namely those with direct understanding of reality who have reached the bodhisattva stages. When taking refuge, we kneel with one knee on the ground . So this is all commentary on this, 7th, 8th, and 9th verses. When taking refuge, we kneel with one knee on the ground and our hands pressed together in the gesture of homage. And when we do this, if you're in Nepal or India, namaste, how you going? But when we take refuge, we don't have our thumbs out like that, we tuck them in. So that's when we prostrate, so we're not prostrating empty-handed. And we visualize that our thumbs are really a precious jewel, jewel of bodhicitta, the jewel of enlightenment, whatever, the hope diamond, whatever you like. But the Dharma, the 3 jewels of refuge in one, whatever it is. So we prostrate like that, not flat, not like that. Our hands pressed together in a gesture of homage. The words of taking refuge are repeated 3 times. And at the end of the 3rd repetition, we imagine that we've received the refuge vow. So that's what we do ourselves. To actually take refuge, we the first time, when we decide we want to be a Buddhist, when we take refuge, we take it from a qualified teacher. But then we can take refuge ourselves like this in front of a statue or in front of our altar, or even just a visualization. We can take refuge all day, every day if we like. So remember, generally speaking, there are 2 causes of taking refuge. There's, we take refuge kind of pushed from behind by fear of the sufferings of samsara. Deep understanding, as mentioned, the 3 sufferings, suffering of suffering, changeable suffering, pervasive suffering, and the 6 sufferings, and the 8 sufferings, all these different ways to think about and meditate on suffering, the Buddha explained. Just the first noble truth. So fear of the suffering of samsara, healthy fear, positive fear. Some people think fear is always negative. It's not right. Positive fear protects us. It stops us crossing a road without looking both ways. It stops us from sticking, a knife into an electric socket. Those are healthy fears. So fear of suffering pushing us from behind. And so in the lamrim, we've meditated on perfect human rebirth, on impermanence and death, 3 lower realms. So if we've meditated on those preliminary meditations, then that leads us to have this healthy fear of the lower realms in particular, and the sufferings of samsara in general. And that leads us to look for a solution. So that's pushing us to look for a solution. Pulling us towards the solution, which is refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, is full faith and confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the 3 rare sublime ones, to lead us out of suffering, to happiness and safety. So those are the two main causes of taking refuge, and the one pushing us and one drawing us towards it. And then the third in Mahayana refuge, which was mentioned, is that we're doing this not for ourselves, but for the sake of all sentient beings. So not only do we fear our own samsara, but we fear the samsara of all sentient beings. So we take refuge on their behalf.
Nick,
Yeah.
just previously, just want to make sure I clarify, understand correctly, that the as Sangha he was saying is referring to the Arya Bodhisattva Sangha and not to Arya learners.
Well, he says those who've reached the bodhisattva stages. So I think it's for any bodhisattva, even on the first level. The bodhisattva is an Arya until the 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Okay.
They fully realized. But to have a direct understanding of reality, you need to reach the first bodhisattva stage, I think. So there's another Sangha text called the Bodhisattva Bhumi, which talks about the stages, bodhisattva stages. That's also been published by Shambhala. I forget who the translator was. Art Engel. Art Engel was one of the translators. He was a student of Geshe Losang Tachin, who with Ribush Rinpoche, who came to Boston, and his coming to Boston was what removed the obstacles to our getting to center. Ribush Rinpoche about 21, 22 years ago now. He and Geshe Tachin were the two last living disciples of Pabonka Rinpoche. And Geshe Tachin was in New Jersey. And Art Engel was one of his main students, and he translated a bunch of stuff. He was one of the translators. We have Michael Richards' translation of Pabonka's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. And we published that at Wisdom in 91. But then Geshe Tachin's students asked us if we'd mind, which is very nice of them, if they also published the translation, because His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche, who was the editor of Pabonka Rinpoche's teachings that led to Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand being published in Tibetan in 58, His Holiness Trijang Rinpoche asked Geshe Tachin to translate it. So he really wanted to fulfill his guru's request that he translate this teaching. So they asked us if we'd mind if they did their translation. So what are you going to say? So we said, sure, fine, go ahead. Nothing wrong with a bit of Dharma competition. So they published Liberation in Our Hands in 3 volumes. So personally, I find it useful to have both translations because they're slightly different. And also the footnotes in Liberation in Our Hands in, Geshe, in Art Engel, those students' translation is, the footnotes are really helpful. And actually, Michael Richards had a huge number of footnotes. A lot of those we edited out of his translation, much to his chagrin. And I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but I don't know if they still exist somewhere, could put them online, I guess, for the lovers of footnotes and, Dharma trivia. So Art Engel has translated, and they have their press called Mahayana Sutra and Tantra Press. They published a bunch of, that's when we were talking about the 12 links, I was there's King Udriana, the story of how the Wheel of Life came about, that one that Deborah's holding up. That's translated by Geshe Tatsun students from the Mahayana Sutra and Tantra Press. So they published a bunch of important texts, a commentary on the six session yoga, and some how to develop bodhicitta, different texts. So Artingel has translated the Bodhisattva Bhumi by a Sangha, but that one's published by Shambhala. It's amazing, really, what the amount of stuff we have available to us now. 50 years ago, there was nothing, virtually nothing. Okay, so when taking refuge, we kneel with one knee on the ground and our hands pressed together, gesture orange. The words of taking refuge are repeated 3 times. At the end of the 3rd repetition, we imagine that we've received the refuge vow. And so you can visualize receiving it in the form of light. You just feel your body light up with the refuge that you've just taken and received. An important distinction between Mahayana refuge and other forms is not only the time frame, but also the recognition that any aspiration for personal peace acts as a hindrance to full enlightenment. Therefore, the practitioner is prepared to place others' well-being above his or her own and takes refuge with a sincere wish to rescue them from the fears of worldly existence and solitary peace. So it's interesting that Mahayanists always talk about the fears of worldly existence, the sufferings of samsara, that's obvious, but also the fear of liberation, which is, the everlasting blissful peace and happiness. So from Mahayana view, we don't want to get sucked into that. Otherwise, because if we do, it takes us much longer to reach enlightenment, and that hinders our ability to help all sentient beings. So that's a major obstacle from Mahayana point of view. Though the order is somewhat different, this part of the text indicates 6 preparations. So these are the 6 that Pabonka Rinpoche goes into in great detail. First is to clean the surroundings of the actual place where we tend to practice and set up representations of the enlightened body, speech, and mind. The second is to arrange them before these objects, the Buddha statue, the stupa, the text. The second is to arrange the offerings in a beautiful way, those that have been honestly acquired and which are offered with sincere and good intention. The third preparatory practice is to sit in the 7-point posture of Vairocana or in another comfortable position. So that's what we do at the beginning of these sessions. We do, 2-3 minutes meditation on the breath. We sit in the Vairocana position. So there's quite a good detailed footnote on that, which we might as well remind ourselves of. The position of Vairocana has 7 features. So this was supposedly introduced to Tibet by Mapa, the translator who used to go to India and study with Naropa. And so he'd go to study with Naropa and bring back texts to Tibet and translate them. And Mapa, of course, was the guru of Milarepa. And, sort of one of the fathers of the Kagyu tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. So it went from Tilopa to Naropa to Mapa to Milarepa to Gampopa and Rechungpa and some of Milarepa's students. But Gampopa, Dagpalaji, the doctor who wrote Liberation, the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, he was one of the main founders of the Kagyu tradition. So that was the lineage. So Mapa always used to boast, they say, about how perfect his meditation posture was. And that kind of became that was the Vairocana position that has these 7 features. The first, the legs are placed in the Vajra position, or we call it full lotus, with the back of one foot on top of the opposite thigh, and the right leg crossed in front of the left. The Vajra posture, which creates an auspicious precedent for attaining the Vajra position of the energy channels, winds, and constituents during the stage of completion in the practice of Tantra. So, the highest yoga Tantra has the generation and completion stages. And in the completion stage, we meditate on these subtle energies of the body, the winds, the channels, and the chakras. And, trying to open the chakras and to allow the energy to flow unobstructed into the central channel. So this Vajra posture enhances our ability to do that. Although this position is initially not easy to hold, it can be maintained for long periods when one is accustomed to it. So it's a very stable position. It stops you from falling over when you're spending, hours, days, even weeks in meditation. So it's extremely stable. So people who practice yoga can adopt the full lotus fairly easily. And yoga was developed in India to actually enable people to assist people in their meditation practice. It wasn't sort of the get fit quick practice that it sometimes is these days. Keeping the lower part of the body locked in this way prevents ailments caused by cold, but the upper part of the body should be as relaxed as possible to prevent disturbance of the energy winds. So that's, the lower part of our body is kind of rock solid. It's a very firm foundation for the upper part of our body. When we're doing these more advanced practices. But if we can't do the full lotus, then we do the half lotus, the regular cross-legged position, just, with your ankles under your shins is if you sit like that, it's quite easy to put pressure on the sciatic nerve and get pins and needles in our legs. So the full lotus or even the half lotus can prevent that sort of disturbance in our legs. So second, the hands, but if we can't sit on a cushion on the floor in one of these cross-legged positions, we can sit on a chair. The important thing is to keep our back straight and our feet flat on the floor. And if the chair is a bit high and our feet don't reach the floor, you can put a cushion under them so that your feet are flat. So the hands are in the position of meditative equipoise, 4 fingers widths below our navel. So, our navel is here, so our hands are here below the navel. Palms upward, your right hand on top of the left, tips of the thumbs touching. So here it says, with the back of the left hand resting on the palm of the right. I think that's wrong. And if you look at images of the Buddha and so forth, you see that the right hand is on top, the right hand rests, back of the right hand rests in the palm of the left. So I think that's wrong. The thumbs touch, thereby creating a triangle. This position of the hands symbolizes the activation of psychic heat, or tumo, centered around the navel. So 3, the elbows are kept away from the body to allow a flow of air under the arms, which prevents slackness and lethargy in meditation. So the arms are out a little bit like this. But you can see that it also creates some energy circles here, and then the larger one like this. So you don't want to keep your hands like that. Keep them a little bit away from your body. So when it says allows the air to circulate, I'm not sure where this is not Geshe-la's teaching. I'm not sure where Ruth Sonam, the translator, got this from, but allowing the air to circulate, it can mean allowing just the ordinary air to circulate around your body. I think it means it allows the inner air or inner winds to circulate by creating these sort of energy circles. So the wind in Tibetan is called lung, or prana in Sanskrit. Maybe it's the chi. Is the chi, Margaret? Is that the same as prana? So the spine is kept straight to bring the energy channels into the best position for free movement of the energy winds. So the movement of the energy winds, I think, is one of the reasons why we do this, and we keep our arms a little bit out from our sides and sort of more rounded. The chin is slightly tucked in to inhibit the upward flowing energy winds, which cause agitation when uncontrolled. So, there are 5 main winds, the upward moving, downward moving, and the life-holding wind, which is centered at the heart. And there are 5 main winds and 5 secondary winds. I can't remember what they are now, but it's in that really great little book called Death, Intermediate State and Rebirth by Lati Rinpoche and Jeffrey Hopkins. A slim little book, but talking about the death process. And he talks about the different winds there. It's a very important little book. So our chin, we don't hold our head back like that. We don't keep it straight. We keep it tucked in. They say that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has said that, if you bend your head too far forward, then there's danger of your mind becoming heavy and sluggish, and you tend to fall asleep. But if your head is too far back, it's easier to get scattering, distracted, especially if we're meditating with our eyes just slightly open. I'm sure he'll probably come to that. He will. But it's said that if your head is your neck is bent, slightly bent forward, so that if you did open your eyes and look ahead, they'd focus on a point, maybe 3 or 4 feet in front of your body. They would hit the floor there. If you look straight ahead with your head. So that's the angle of your neck. So the mouth is neither open nor tightly closed, but relaxed with the tip. So, especially in India, you don't want to open your mouth because the flies will go in there, but your lips are just lightly closed, your lower jaw is relaxed. So the mouth is neither open nor tightly closed, but relaxed, with the tip of your thumb touching the upper palate behind the front teeth. This prevents thirst and drooling. See, nothing worse than a drooling meditator during long periods of meditative absorption. So it's said that with single point of concentration, the flow of saliva somehow is stimulated or increased. So if you keep your tip of your tongue touching your hard palate behind the top teeth, it sort of slopes downwards into your throat. And then any saliva that's formed will just automatically slide down and go down your esophagus. And so that will stop you having to consciously swallow, because that can disturb your concentration. So the eyes are neither wide open, which encourages distraction, nor tightly closed, which can lead to sleepiness. So again, connected with the neck. They're loosely focused in line with the tip of one's nose. So that's right. So if you're looking down the tip of your nose, they've hit the floor a few feet in front of you. So when we're beginning our meditation practice, it's probably easier to have your eyes lightly closed, because if they're slightly open, we can still get distracted by things in our line of sight. But when we're had some practice in meditation, then we can open our eyes slightly, and the advantage there is that it lets a little light into our mind and stops our mind from getting dark and heavy and sluggish and sleepy. So those are the 7 points of the Vairocana position, or Mapa's position. Sometimes they talk about an 8th factor or an 8th aspect, and that is just doing breathing. That's meditating, focusing on the breath. Once we've adopted that position, then it's sort of a warm-up to whatever meditation that we're going to do, whether it's a visualization or analytical meditation or lamrim. It's sort of a warm-up. We do some meditation on the breath, just to try and calm and focus and center our mind and get rid of distractions. So sometimes that's given as an 8th factor, but it's not really part of the meditation posture. So then, with a very positive motivation, we then take refuge and generate the altruistic intention. Take refuge and generate bodhicitta. So that's the 3rd preliminary practice I'm talking about. So the 4th is to visualize a field of merit, those in relation to whom we hope to create merit. So, we generate we visualize the merit field. So the refuge merit field, has Guru Shakyamuni Buddha as the main figure, and then there's all these other complicated things around him, with the method lineage and the wisdom lineage and the meditational deities and the medicine Buddhas and the 35 Buddhas in confession, all these different sort of layers. I'm not going to go into it now. And then the Guru Puja merit field is similar, but it has Tupwan Dorji Chung. So, it has Lama Tsongkhapa, as the main image, and at his heart the Buddha, and his heart of our Dorji Chan, Vajradhara, and then his heart the blue letter Hum. So there are these different ways of visualizing the merit field, and it's called a merit field because that's where that's the object of our different practices of the 7 limbs and so forth. And so we plant our merit in that field, and we receive the crop of realizations, something like that. In relation to those in relation to whom we hope to create merit. So you've got to always remember when we visualize the Buddha or the merit field or anything, this is all manifestations of our guru's enlightened mind. So all these different images in the merit field, all these scores of deities and Buddhas and lineage, lamas and so forth, they're all manifestations of our guru's omniscient mind. So the 5th preliminary practice is perform the 7-part practice and make a mandala offering, offering a mandala representing the universe through which we purify negative and accumulate positive energy, merit. And the 6th preliminary practice to make requests for inspiration and success in our practice, and to familiarize ourselves with the object of our meditation. So all this is done when we do the Guru Puja, all these different things are done in greater detail. Having taken refuge in the special Mahayana way, we train ourselves in 3 states of mind: love, compassion, and bodhicitta. So that's Geshe Sonam Rinchen talking about those verses 7, 8, and 9. So His Holiness deals with these in a chapter called the ceremony for generating bodhicitta. So His Holiness says, to participate in the ceremony for affirming and enhancing your generation of the altruistic intention, bodhicitta, first visualize that Shakyamuni Buddha is here in person, surrounded by such disciples as Maitreya, Manjushri, Nagarjuna, Arya Sangha, and the other great Indian masters of the past, whose writings we continue to enjoy and derive benefit from to this day, and which serve to open our eye of awareness. So again, these are all figures in the merit field. Reflect upon the kindness of these masters, as well as that of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas. Also imagine the presence of the great masters from all 4 traditions of Tibetan Buddhism, Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Gelug, going back to when Buddhism first started to flourish in Tibet in the 7th to 8th centuries. Practitioners from other Buddhist traditions should visualize lineage masters and historical teachers of their own traditions in the assembly. So, the Theravada traditions in Thailand or Sri Lanka, Burma, so forth, or in Japanese Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, Korean Buddhism, they have their own lineage teachers, so practitioners in those traditions should visualize those. So when His Holiness gives teachings, and especially when he's going to offer the Bodhisattva vows, which he does even now quite frequently via Zoom. You can take the Bodhisattva vows from His Holiness, from Avalokiteshvara himself, from the comfort of your own home. You could even do it in bed, So some of the advantages of modern technology. You don't even have to get up to become a bodhisattva. But when His Holiness gives teachings, there's many other people from different traditions come. I don't know if you watched the teaching last night from His Holiness, but was requested by a group of Koreans. So at the beginning, he has these Korean monks doing the chanting of the Heart Sutra, or different texts. They have so sometimes when he's giving when he used to give big teachings in public, hundreds, thousands of people there, he'd have all different monks, the Sangha from different traditions come up and do their chanting, from the Pali tradition, the Chinese, Korean, Sanskrit, chanting of the Heart Sutra, all these different, take a while to get through it actually, before we got to the teaching, but His Holiness is making a point. So when he gave this teaching in Los Angeles, about over 20 years ago, there were all these different monks and practitioners from different traditions. So he's also giving them instructions how to do the ceremony for generating bodhicitta. Most importantly, visualize that you're surrounded by all other sentient beings. If this is difficult, simply reflect upon the fundamental equality of yourself and all other sentient beings, insofar as the natural desire to seek happiness and overcome suffering is concerned. Just as you have the right and natural potential to fulfill this basic aspiration to be happy and overcome suffering, so do all the other infinite sentient beings. So we all have the right to be happy and free from suffering. Then reflect on the fact that when you think of your own self-interest, regardless of your level of importance, you're simply thinking about the concerns of a single individual. When you think of the interests of others, you're thinking about the welfare of an infinite number of beings. To sacrifice the welfare of countless others for the benefit of one, therefore, is not only foolish, but also immoral. Furthermore, it's impractical because it's a deluded way of trying to fulfill your own aspiration. So thinking of your own self-interest is a deluded way of trying to fulfill your own aspirations. Next, contemplate the idea that you have held this self-centeredness and self-cherishing attitude at the core of your being since beginningless time, continually trying to fulfill your basic aspirations to be happy and overcome suffering from a self-centered perspective. But if you look at the situation you're in today, you'll see that actually you haven't made any progress, even after this infinite number of lifetimes. Still not really happy, still beset by suffering. If self-centeredness really had the potential to bring you the benefits you seek, it should have done it by now. Conclude, therefore, that under the control of self-cherishing since beginningless time, you've made one mistake after another, and now it's enough. Generate the strong determination never to travel this deluded path again. Compare yourself with great beings, such as the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas on the path to enlightenment, and realize that all their achievements have come from working for others instead of for themselves. Make this firm resolution. As a Dharma practitioner, from now on, I must work for the benefit of all sentient beings. I will attain Buddhahood for their sake, to liberate them from suffering and lead them to enlightenment. So with that, participate in the ceremony for generating bodhicitta. So with that, we come to the end of this session. So that's a good place to pause for now. You know, the thought of attaining enlightenment for sake of all sentient beings. So, you know, we generated bodhicitta at the beginning. We've been generating all through the practice. We've been thinking about the teachings of Lama Atisha, his lamp for the path to enlightenment. So we've created a lot of merit. And as the seventh limb encourages to do, we have to dedicate the merit. So by doing that, we protect the merit we've created from being destroyed by anger or wrong views. So think, you know, because of this merit that, you know, created over the last couple of hours, may I quickly reach enlightenment for the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So that's this meaning and spirit of the prayers that we do at the end. So, so we'll do that and pick up here next week.
Saji perkishuk shingli tokran rirabling jini de ginpadi sange jingdu mikte uwagi drokun namdag jingla chirpashug jetsun lame kutse rapten ching nam katrin le chokcher ge padang lo sang ten pedren me sasungi droe munsel tag tune gyurchig idam kururatna mandalakam niryatayami. From my two collections, vast is space that I've amassed for working with effort at this practice for a great length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread or declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this graded course to enlightenment completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their children. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Savior of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings, who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion, to the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Mahayana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others your disciples, please, please live long. Through this virtue may I swiftly, having gained the Guru Buddha's state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may it where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Meet say wei ter chen chen rezi, Gri me kien pe wang po jam pel yang, Gang chen ke pe su gen song ka pa, Lo sang drak pe jab la sol wa de.
Okay, thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nick.
It's
Thanks.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nick.
see you
Thank
next,
you.
see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nick.
Dr. Nick.